To talk about modern composition, we have to think about the open admissions movement. And we had this time where, and we've had first-year comp for a long time. It started in Harvard, and other schools were taking up that model, and people had at least a first semester course before this. In a lot of places, like we do have here at Coastal, a first-year sequence. But suddenly these big land-grant universities around the late 60s, early 70s started to have open admissions programs, and suddenly a whole class of students were coming into the university who had never been there before. And there was this sharply felt literacy crisis, where a lot of the professors in English departments who'd been teaching these courses said, our students don't know how to write. We don't know how to teach them to write. And comp was even more being pushed to be this gatekeeping experience. And suddenly this group of scholars said, no, this is a moment for transformative teaching. This is a moment for social justice. We have to figure out ways to accelerate students' admittance into the university. We have to help them shift and not leave, not abandon. We have to help them shift from a primary discourse that isn't that connected to the dominant secondary discourse of the university. One big thing that came out was the 4C's resolution on students' right to their own language. This is a piece, it's very short, we'll show you some excerpts from it in a moment, but this was basically an argument that said students don't have to leave their primary discourses outside of the classroom. That in a composition class, we should be studying writing, we should be studying communication, we should look at the social nature of language, and part of that means bringing multiple voices, bringing multiple dialects into the classroom.
And this moment, I think what is significant about it is that this is the moment where a large group, a large educational group, sort of stood up to or took a stance on institutional language ideologies and said, language is not one thing. Language is not this monolith. And we have to not only acknowledge that different types of language exist, but we have to acknowledge the significance of all of them and that they all do actually have a place. That these are, again, not just practical moves, not just theoretical moves, but social moves that we all have to be aware of. That
language and dialect, like I was saying before, that it is culture. It's not just a product of culture, but it is in many ways culture. And that because of that, right, since you learn it from your family growing up, you learn it from your friends, and it's very much a part of home, that accepting a new language variety is akin to accepting a new culture. And at the flip side of that is then rejecting a language variety is the same as rejecting the culture that goes along with that. And so this is where a lot of our students are sort of caught, especially since the 1960s and the open enrollment policies, when new communities were brought into the university that never had access to it before. These sort of things came clear, and that's where it hits into the classroom, into the 101 classroom.
And these are concerns for us on a number of levels. When we live in a university setting where we have open admissions, open access, and we are concerned about retention, and we are concerned about helping our students succeed, and that should be our goal, rather than gatekeeping, but helping them to succeed. And how do we best prepare ourselves? Because if we are asking them in some ways to reject a language or inviting them into a new discourse community, maybe they don't even know what the stakes of that new discourse community's culture are. They're foreign to them.
As teachers, as educators, we've taken eradication approach, where we just say there's no space for that. We can't have that in the classroom. That's not what we're meant to teach you. We have a bidialectical approach, where we can bring the primary and non-dominant dialects into the classroom, but they always have to exist with the dominant. They always have to be in conversation. And he argues for pluralism, though I'd say his book is actually an argument for bidialecticalism, where he says we have to work with students to challenge the existing power structures.
And so I was just going to add, one of the things that we've tried to do here that is a little bit different is a lot of people have theorized about this and why we should do this. So we're actually moving, and especially in the field of sociolinguistics, we're moving to we need to put our money where our mouth is and actually come up with product at this point. Like, we can theorize about it and say, we're doing social justice, but we're not really doing social justice until we in some ways create something that can actually begin the process and help with the process of it.
One of the original criticisms, and a valid one, of the NCTE statement, not the statement, the accompanying document that went with it, was that it was great theory, great
practice.
ideas, but there wasn't much praxis or how to do it. And we're all out here on the ground teaching kids, and we don't know what to do. And so that's always been a concern from the beginning. These are great ideas, but how do you do it? And so our goal through this project that we've created and some of what we're going to talk about today is one way, at least, that we can get this theory into praxis.
And the real focus, and I'm going to point to Kutz on this especially, is the notion that students bring discourse competence to our classes. They know how to do things with language, and the way to teach them how to write is to point out what they're already doing and then expand on those repertoires. So this is a direct push against Gilliard's eradicationalist approach, and to say no, or that he names, and to say we're building on your existing knowledge, we're building on your existing strategies.
What we're looking at and what we're asking them to do is what Smitherman said in 1995. We're asking them to acquire the language of wider communication that's appropriate for whatever place they're in. But you came somewhere new. How do you even know what that language is? How do you know if you're hitting the target correctly?
And in many ways, it is like a practice of almost translation, right? Because they come in with an intimate knowledge of one variety of speaking, and we want them to acquire a new variety. And the best way to do that is to take the language that they know and show them the parallels in other language, so that they are able to then acquire this new one in a way that makes use of, like Denise was talking about, the literacies that they already come in with, right? So this is not a tabula rasa, like they come in just blank and we need to pour in this, but using what they already have as scaffolding to learn something new. How to do it, and how to do it on a programmatic level, it's hard. So one of the great things about this is, since we've got these digital badges, which are a consistent thing, same material used in all sections of 101, that this is a way then that we can roll out some of these initiatives, roll out some of these practical ways to do some of these things on a programmatic level, without everyone having to apply the theory in their own way, and how do you do it? Because some of this is really difficult to, okay, that sounds great, but how do you do it? Our 101 badge is called Shifting Styles. It begins, like many of the badges do, with a video.
I think one of the important things too, and you'll see this across both badges, that Daniel and I were really striving for, was to have students know that it's okay and you should participate in meta-linguistic and meta-discursive commentary and discussions. That it's okay to ask, is this appropriate writing style? It's okay. That's not a dumb question, but that's actually a significant and important question. And so these badges in many ways ask them to provide meta-linguistic and meta-discursive commentary, something that they've potentially been afraid to do.
The assignment part, they watch a YouTube video of a couple of women speaking about their own language attitudes, a Southerner speaking about Northern linguistic varieties, and a Northerner speaking about Southern linguistic varieties, and they present, really sort of scary, almost like ideologies there. Many of these are shared by most of us, and then they're forced to sort of do you agree? What do you disagree with them? And then we ask them some questions. Some of these, involving questions about purpose, audience, mode. We ask them some about the difference between writing versus speaking. Do you think you need to speak a certain way to be a good writer, and all these sort of things.
The 102 badge used to be Imagining Readers, is now Shifting Styles 2. What they're basically asked to do is communicate the same message in different modes or different genres, different styles, okay? And one of the critical goals here is to talk about, you're doing the same thing, you're just doing it across styles, and then we ask them specifically, what did you change in changing styles? Like, point to words or sentences, point to specifics. We want them to look at specific things. That's one of the goals, and one of the things we hope to provide when we do teacher training is to say, we want them pointing to specific things. I chose to use a bigger word. I chose to have a longer sentence. And this is why. This was the effect that it produced. That meta-linguistic and meta-discursive commentary is the goal here, to get them talking about the social reasons behind their language choice.
And again, the scaffolding that we're creating here, I think is really important and interesting from a composition standpoint, is that they're asked to write like they would for a social media post, a paragraph. And they do this all the time, right? They make really informed, interesting choices about tweets that they do and Snapchats that they do without like the meta awareness of it, but they know what makes it, what gets them retweeted, and
they know what a good hashtag is. They know
it. Right? And so we ask them to write like that, and then turn around, write the exact same thing, but in like you would write for, I forget how
it's write a letter to the president of the university.
Okay,
I think it was that.
Yeah, like you would write it to Dr.
more formal
DeCenzo.
Writing style.
And this is super important for tons of reasons. One big one, though, for us and for all campuses of retention, like Becky was talking about earlier, this is a question of retention, and that students, first generation college students, may and often do leave the university because they just don't feel like they're a part. They can't make it. They're outsiders, and they'll never be insiders, and so they're leaving. And it addresses the fact that they come from diverse backgrounds, and then it uses that to springboard them into a new linguistic community. Yeah, so it's all about leveraging, like I've said before, being able to take the literacy skills that students come in with and leverage those into acquiring anew, and being able to maintain and not eradicate the home language variety, while becoming a part of a new community. And that's really sort of the goal, and one of the things that I think that these badges can accomplish in a programmatic way, in a way that doesn't it's not just a cool theoretical idea that then you have to go out and apply, and we can do it across the board.